I'm Harmony Williams, and this is Life-Changing Trips. Sometimes it's hard to see the freedom and the beauty that lives behind the weight of everything we carry. But I believe that life is so amazing, and I can't waste another moment. I'm so excited to be here with you for another transformational conversation about experiences and the latest research on plant medicine, meditation, breath work, and other unconventional modalities, and how they are being used for mental health and expansion. I hope by listening that you will find ways to integrate your peak experiences and epiphanies to open up new levels of possibilities, ingenuity, and fulfillment in business, and deeper, authentic connection and passion in your relationships, and a feeling of purpose, of living fully alive. Hi, welcome to interview number 2 with Ryan Bean. If you didn't listen to the first one, Ryan Bean is a 500 RYT yoga instructor, certified Wim Hof method instructor, language of breath lead instructor, a meditation facilitator, and he has the podcast Life as an Observer. You can find him on Instagram at Ryan Bean Yoga. And in this episode, we begin with his beautiful hand pan meditation again. It was so lovely. I wanted to let you experience that, and especially for those people that didn't get to listen to the first episode. Ryan will be at TEDx 2023 at Tuacahn in March this year, so grab your tickets to be able to watch him live there. If you or someone you know is struggling with depression, anxiety, just really feeling like they're in a life crisis, I think that Ryan has a lot of options here, and I'm excited to bring those to you. And that's just part of the goal of my podcast, is to really help out and bring some hope and different modalities to people who are struggling and have tried everything and don't know where else to turn. I just want you to know that there is hope, there are options, and keep looking for answers. Reach out. I'm happy to talk to anyone that feels alone or needs help. I'm not a professional, but I'm here. I've got my love and what I can give. So in this episode, we discuss how he does the ketamine treatments at the clinic that he works for and what procedures there are. There's lots of different procedures for administering ketamine and what they do surrounding that as far as therapy and psychological or talk therapy. We talk about fear and how to overcome and understand fear. He talks a little about the 5 different types of bodies in the yogic philosophy: the physical, the mental, the vital energy or chi, astral body, which is like the sleep and visualizations, our blissful body, this place where we feel joy. We chat about how we get past our personality and the ego. We talk about government and churches wanting control of cannabis and psychedelics. And we have a special treat from him that is a hand pan meditation, which is really cool. So I hope you stay on till the end to get to hear that. Ryan has all his links right there on his Instagram page. So if you go follow him, you can just click on that link and it will take you to all of the information for his retreats, for the services he offers, his podcast, all of those cool things. This was such a fun conversation, and I'm excited to share it with you.
There's a story of 2 monks walking along the Ganges River in Rishikesh, India. Okay, so 2 swamis are walking at dark. It's a new moon, and there's 2 bridges, right? There's one, it's called the Lakshmanjula and the Ramjula. And these 2 bridges are a couple miles apart from each other, and they're walking along the riverbank, and they see a snake. Now, snakes in India, poisonous, right? Cobras. You don't want to mess with these snakes. You just don't want to mess with them. And they're walking on this path, and they're like, we're not going to mess with this snake. We're going to go back to the bridge, go over, walk around, come back, and go this way to go back to our ashram. And so they go way out of the way. I mean, that's like, a mile back to the bridge, 2 miles around, maybe another like half a mile this way. It's a long ways to go around just to go to their house, right? But they do it. And next day they're going walking back into town, and they come upon this place where the snake was, and there's the snake. But today, with the light of day and experience at hand, they realize it's a stick. And how often do we react that way when we think we know what we see or feel or what's going to happen? And so we make a decision that is a reaction rather than a observation and response.
So huge.
So huge. Yeah, where you can just go, well, it could be a snake, but it also could be something else. Doesn't mean that our reactions aren't good. I mean, in the right environment, it's really good. You take, let's say, like a serviceman who's got out of the army, and they're suffering from PTSD that has to do with gunshots and all this stuff around them, and they're traumatized from all this fighting that's happened. And you put them out into the real world, and you never know what the trigger could be, a backfiring car or fireworks or whatever. I mean, those are stereotypical, but it could be anything that's triggering. For me, I didn't want to sit with my back to the door of any restaurant or any public place for a long time. I just didn't think I was safe.
Yeah.
But I was. So these things show up, right? And they don't serve us in this world. But you put that same person back in combat, and it serves them very well. There hasn't been an adaptation to removing the personality and becoming a soul. It's just been like, I am this, and I need to react this way. And that's where a lot of servicemen and women, when they get out, they're still trying to figure out who they are, and they're feeling very much lost. I do a lot of veterans retreats, and the lost is not like I know who I am, but I don't know who I can be after this self-identification of this job.
Yeah.
I don't know who I am now, and can I even survive in this environment? Same thing happens to prisoners who don't want to get out of jail because they don't know how they will function outside of it. And so, there's so many tools that are happening in, even within the veteran system, they're working at it. It's not perfect, but they're working at some options. That's why other organizations like mine exist to help along with that. There's stuff happening in prisons that help with like teaching job skills and whatnot, but it's just not enough.
Right.
We have to have really a grassroots, really guerrilla effort to say, here, we're going to teach some of this stuff. And it doesn't matter. It's not about profit. It's about being souls who want to care about other souls because we want to live in a better place. S.N. Goenka, when he went into the prisons in Delhi to teach Vipassana, he didn't do it because he was hoping to make a lot of money doing it, right? He didn't go, I'm going to teach meditation so I can make a ton of money. He did it because he knew that his method of Vipassana meditation could help those who were behind bars. These are very hardened prisoners. And they went from 10 to 50 to doing a meditation with 1,000 prisoners for 10 days in silence in Delhi, India. And these prisoners, afterward, with this insight at hand, were remorseful and even hugging their prison guards and asking for forgiveness of the families they may have taken the life of their son. Or this is massive.
Yeah.
And this is massive for us to come into those realizations with these other tools that are not medications that numb us to who we are. I think that we need to be open to who we are and allow it to be what it is. I am a man, and I can't help that in this incarnation. That is what I identify as, and that is, my physiology says that. I'm also a therapist. That's what I do. I'm also a yoga instructor. I'm also a breath worker. I have these things, but I don't need to be defined by them because all of it could change at a moment's notice. It could all change. I could say, well, I can't do yoga anymore because I don't have my legs anymore. So I'm going to be, this podcast host, or I'm going to do whatever it is that I'm doing that day. And I think as we step into the role of creator and we ease out of the expectation of especially who our parents think we're supposed to be, but also the self-adorned crown of this is who I am going to be when I grow up. Ease. Super ease. That's what I try to live every day like that. Try. There's days that suck still.
Right.
There's still a lot of days that suck. But I think those are some of our best teachers.
Yeah.
Abraham Hicks calls those days contrasting days.
Yes, contrast.
And it's like, what can I learn from this contrast, right? What can I learn? Well, I can learn what I do want and what the opposite of what I do want. Create two different messages,
Even when I'm being someone I don't want to be, or, acting in a certain way, that's contrast. And I can say, oh, that felt bad. I don't like who I was being. I'm going to change that. Or like, I want to be a better person or a different person, or I want to react differently in that situation from that contrast. So did you have a finished, were you
well, I was looking at this can and I was thinking like, so this is black cherry sparkling water. And if I were to look at, hey, this is what is wanted. I want the black cherry water, right? Okay. But if I were to hold the can up and at such a level where all I see is the bottom of it, I wouldn't see that it's black cherry, right? I would look up at the can and I would see that it's a silver can. And I'd be looking at the opposite of what is wanted, essentially. I'm looking at for something that is non-defined and I don't really know. And the problem is we do a lot of this. We hold what we want really high. We say, oh, it's way up there. One day I will. One day I'll have enough money to buy that thing. One day, or when I'm good enough or strong enough. And we look at the opposite of what is wanted, which is usually not enoughness. So we say, well, I'm not quite tall enough to reach that can. So I'll just enjoy the bottom of it. And what the universe hears is you're enjoying the bottom of it, you know, or it says you can't reach it. Yeah. And so we reinforce that with the opposite of what is wanted, and rather than what is wanted, saying I'm limitless, my potential is limitless, I will. And that is where lasting changes happen in all of what we've been talking about today, is we have to say, I am going to remove the personality here. And the yogis have they claim 5 different bodies through Hindu philosophy. It's talked a lot about in the Yoga Sutras. So of having the Annamaya Kosha, our physical body. That's what we identify. Most of us look at this kosha and go, that's who I am. I am this hair, I'm this beard, I'm these toes, I'm this. But then we also have our mental body, which is totally a separate body from our physical, right? Because our mind and our body, we know from our conversation today, have conflicts. They don't believe each other. And the only way to speak to them is through frequency and chemical, the way to unionize them. We also have our vital energy, which is the pranamaya kosha. So our vijnana, our annamaya kosha, our vijnana, and then our pranamaya kosha, which is our vital energy. Our vital energy is our heart beating, it's our breath. It's all this life force. Some people would call it the connection of the kundalini energy, this chi, right? We have this other body that takes practice, but we can tune into it, right? We can. And then as we progress into that, we have an astral body, which we sometimes tap into in our sleep, right? In our dream state, which is a place of visualizations, manifestations, even creativity. Are not real familiar with what happens there. Some are a little bit more familiar than others, but out-of-body experiences and so forth. And then finally, our Anandamaya Kosha. If you're familiar with the word Ananda, it means bliss. Okay. So our blissful body. And our blissful body is really where we go when we're in those places of complete joy. When we're in those psychedelic states, we're feeling good. Serotonin's running through us. We're feeling happy. We
don't need anything different. We don't need the money or the person or just whatever's right there in front of us is perfect.
You can just be happy, just be joyful in that moment. Right there. And the Buddha called this, our self-realization. The Hindus called this samadhi. The Western thought thinkers and even the Zen Buddhists, they called it nirvana. It all had different names for this blissful body that we have access to. And that blissful body is in alignment to our source. It says, you're amazing, you're limitless, you're wonderful. When we feel bad, it's because we're not in alignment to our source. We're in alignment to our physical body. We're in alignment to what we see and what we feel and what our ego wants. Yeah. That's where I wouldn't even call it alignment, it's disalignment. Right, yeah. But our alignment when we're with source is bliss. And that is where we receive, we create, we feel joy. The most basic form of our ego is really identifying with our body. Let's stop doing that and let's be souls for a minute. Okay, now I can get out of my mind. I can get into my vital energy now. I can focus on that through meditation and breath. And all that is going to lead me to this place, hopefully one day, where I can say that I'm closer to knowing myself. I had a teacher of mine when I was in India. I say he's a teacher, he was an astrologer. He owned an astrology shop. And astrology shops, they sell crystals usually. So for those who, so you go in there, you want to buy us a couple crystals or whatever. And I would go by this shop. It was in Rishikesh, India. And I would go by this shop almost every day on the way down to the German bakery. Because I could go down there, I could get coffee, I could get something. I love Indian food still, but I was like, to have coffee is kind of cool rather than chai occasionally. So I would go down there nearly every day, go to the yogi bookstore, which was next door, which is cool, get some like cool books and then have a pastry or whatever. And I would stop by this shop, and every time I'd go by, I'd talk to him for a little bit and I'd leave, and he had this little bowl full of these little baby crystals, little teeny like amethyst and quartz and malachite and just little chips of azurite and whatever. Just there's some kyanite. And every day he'd say, a gift for you, and so I would take one crystal and take one crystal and take one crystal until I'd gone by the shop 60 times maybe. And finally I was just like, I don't need another crystal. I don't know why I was feeling that way that day. I was just like, I don't need it. I'm fine. Thank you. They're just little. There's nothing I can do with them really. And he said, and what he said to me has forever changed me. And I remember his face and his words so profoundly to this day. He says, you don't like my gift? And of course I felt just like you just did. I was like, oh man. And I said, no, I do, but I just don't need any more crystals. I just don't. And he said, I'm not giving you crystals. I'm giving you a gift. And he said, do you know why I'm giving you this gift? And I was like, I guess you give them to everyone. And he goes, well, I do. But he said, I'm giving you a gift because when we give people gifts, it makes people happy. And when people are happy, they relax their mind. And when they relax their mind, they're closer to knowing their true self. Right? Yeah. I was like, so okay, cool. So I'll always take the crystal now. So I end up making like little pins with them, and I give them to people and tell them that story because it helps me remember the story. So I just put like a little backing on it. You can clip it on your shirt or whatever. Yeah. And people have the story from that I usually will tell. At retreats and stuff, I'll tell that story. But I think it's really powerful that really the end goal is getting to know our true self. And we have to do that, we really need to find avenues to free our mind of who we thought we were and this whole construct of what we believe is happening. Because none of us really know. No one really knows that we're not on a flat earth. No one really knows that we're not in a matrix. No one really knows. There's lots of debates on both sides, right? We don't really know what happens when you're in a mushroom state. We know that there's some chemicals that go. We can do some MRIs and we can see that there's activity in the limbic mind, and we can see, blood pressure change, and we can kind of assume what's happening, but it's not definitive. Yeah. None of it's definitive because it's always changing. It's always changing. Someone will say, well, whatever, ecstasy's bad. And they're like, well, hold on. Ecstasy's really, it's MDMA and it's actually quite therapeutic. Or we could say, magic mushrooms are horrible for you. And then we remember the movie Reefer Madness where they just showed people going freaking nuts because they were smoking cannabis. No. That's where the word like the gateway drug came in, and this movie was made to basically to demonize cannabis. Okay. And people were like hallucinating on cannabis, and they were like robbing stores, and it was like this whole propaganda about how bad it was for us. And now we're learning that if you would like to have less stress in your life and maybe have better sleep, that cannabis is a great tool for that. It's just because we ban, our governments do, what we fear. And if we don't have control anymore, just like the Roman Catholic Church didn't have control over this worshiping to God, so they took away ergot, in its liquid form to only be with priests, it was to control. And so here we are in a society that wants to control us when we have the ability to commune with whatever we want, however we want, whenever we want. And it's a matter of saying, let me educate myself and be around the right people so that I have a good experience. Yeah. Because a bad experience can happen. Oh, yes. But it doesn't have to. I was up at that same Divine Assembly, the Mushroom Church summer revival, and there was a woman laying on a couch just totally zonked out, right? And I went up to her. I didn't even set up my van yet. I pulled my van up and I was going to set up a tent where our sessions were going to be, our consultations were. And this girl was completely zonked out. I recognized what it looked like. She was in a
Okay.
total disassociated state. And I said, "Are you okay?" And she goes, "Somebody gave me something."
Oh no.
And I was like, "Hold on. You look pretty comfortable here on the couch. Let's talk about this. It's midday, you know." And she's like, "Well, I actually just snorted ketamine."
Oh.
Yeah. And then she's laying on the couch in the hot sun in the middle of summer up in Eden, Utah. And I said, well, okay, well, here's the problem. You know, snorting ketamine in this setting is not the best. A lot of people think of it, psychedelics are psychedelics, right? And the truth is, no, they're so different. Ketamine is such a different animal than you can't even compare it to LSD. You can't even compare it to psilocybin. They're not the same at all. And really, if you have ketamine, you shouldn't be driving for hours and hours later. It is as bad as that disassociation, and that sedation is hours long.
Yeah.
And you could be a risk to yourself and others. And without the proper guidance, you could have a bad trip like this girl was.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I sat with her. I said, "I'm going to sit with you if you want me to." You know. So I sat with her for the next hour and a half until she sobered up, because I knew I could guide her. I mean, it was sort of my service. When I moved to India, I said that I'm going to be of service. I don't know what my job is going to be. I was like, I'm not going to go to med school anymore. I'm going to work in mental health, and I'm going to be of service in whatever way I can. Now, when I came back, all I wanted to do was teach yoga and breath work. I didn't want to do anything clinical. I wasn't sure what that was going to be until the door opened to working with ketamine. But I didn't want to do anything clinical because I didn't enjoy that. I didn't enjoy the medical environment and the corporate environment. So I knew I could guide her if she wanted that help, and she was feeling quite lost in the universe. I mean, on ketamine, you can feel like you're on a whole other planet because you don't feel your body anymore. And here you are looking around and not recognizing anything, feeling quite alone. That's why set and setting is so important. So all I really did is I helped move her inside of a tent, open tent, but where she wasn't exposed to the sun. She could sit, sort of be in her own little world. Gave her an eye mask and just said, "Here, just put this on." And then had some music that was soothing playing next to her, creating a better setting, just a better setting. Now the set still wasn't there, but by me guiding her a little bit, it sort of changed her set from where it could have gone to saying, "At least I'm safe."
Right.
At least I'm safe. I'm associating this. And then when she came out, she's like, "I need to do more of that with you. I need to where can I get your card? How can we chat?" So those who are looking for guided journeys, I offer them usually once a month, one in Salt Lake and one in St. George right now. And we're opening more and more clinics. But it's as easy as just doing the consultation and doing them rather than trying to find this. If you're curious, wasn't that like when we were teenagers, right? We tried everything because we were curious, right?
I didn't. I
did.
followed all the rules.
I did not. So I was super curious, and you would try things and be like, "Oh yeah." Someone told me if you drink a whole bottle of Robitussin.
No.
So I think I did that in the 5th grade.
No.
If you do that, it's like acid, right? And I was like, "Really? Sweet, let me try that." So here I am chugging cough syrup just to get sick, basically.
Right.
You know, it was silly. So
and I think with the teen thing, I really think we should experience, going down a mountain bike trail. And that one looked really hard, but you know what? I didn't do it the whole day, and then we did it at the very end. And I was like, that was the best. Why wasn't I doing that trail the whole day instead of these other crappy trails? Because I was afraid of that, or because I thought it was too hard, or whatever. What if I just try it one time, trusting myself that I can make a decision as to whether I'm safe or not, experience what that is. That's what we're here. I think on this earth, part of that is to expand, to grow, to experience freedom, and see what that's like. I'm really glad that I have, so that I know for myself, and I can say, oh, you know what? Maybe that could be good in a different setting, or maybe I can make those decisions for myself. And our youth, we have this hard, fast line of all or nothing, and they can experience things in a safe set and setting, and they don't have anyone guiding them into the mindset, and they're just out there partying, when not all of them, but there are some very intentional youth too. So it really seems to me like there could be some more guidance rather than just this all or nothing.
Yeah, I've recently gotten some requests from a pediatric dentist.
Oh.
And some of his patients who are having pre-operation anxiety, panic attacks before getting their teeth drilled, cleaned, filled, whatever. And I can tell you that ketamine is safe on young people, and it's also on very old people. There's not a really much of a danger of addiction, misuse. There's just not there.
Yeah.
It doesn't inhibit respiratory function, so I don't need to put on an oxygen mask if I'm using it. Whereas some others, anesthetics you do, laughing gas or whatever they're doing, and any like the local anesthetics they can use too. But ketamine works really well for that. And I'm telling you what, teenagers and kids in general really respond well to this. Now, I think that maybe the listeners will be like, "You're giving psychedelics to kids," but we have to look at both sides of this. We're also giving SSRIs to kids, and it's a life sentence. We're giving kids things that because we don't know what's
or Adderall,
wrong,
or
we're giving
Ritalin, or
all of it.
One molecule away from meth, kind of things.
Really,
right?
We're giving all these very addictive and life sentencing drugs. We're giving somebody Ritalin; they're going to be on their life. Prozac for their entire life. Wellbutrin. We're giving them, Adderall. We're giving them cocaine, basically. We're giving them all these things because somebody said that's what they need. But yet, if we were to say, let's help them heal that, not treat the symptom, but let's really go into the source of this.
Right.
And let's find, and I hate to use the word cure, but let's not have symptoms show up anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we do that by this disassociated state and reprogramming. Because when the mind is healthy, I had same guru, he said, if we want to control the mind, we need to control the breath. When we can control the breath, we can control the mind and the body. And when we control the body, we can get to know ourselves. So the breath is really the catalyst into getting to know this. This is the brain, and the brain is going to lie all the time, especially if you're on mind-altering substances that you're on every day.
Yeah.
Like that's really what a reuptake inhibitor is. Mind-altering is changing the chemical composition for sometimes a few more moments or extra moments to create a result that is artificial. Okay, so if we could go in, and kids on psychedelics, I mean, they're just so imaginative and happy, and it's a great way to introduce a new pattern, especially if it has to do with like dental anxiety. For the most part, depending on how old they are, this is an acute stress. This is something they had a bad experience, and we want to reassociate it with a better experience. So when we reassociate with a better experience, we start with affirmations and empowerment. I have a little girl that comes to see me, and it's these really awesome affirmations we do in this disassociated state. Then when she goes to her dentist, she takes a smaller dose, which gives her kind of that little bit of pain relief, if it is, just because you are going still a sedative. And she's going in there super powerful. I am majestic. I am strong. I can handle this. This is temporary. I'm amazing. I'm gifted. And she's saying these things because that is the association she has now with when anxiety fills her. So I'm working on some kids books right now.
Yeah.
I have 5 of them done,
cool.
But I need an artist. So anybody's listening, I need an illustrator. But I have the actual books are meditations that I have on my Insight timer, and they're really directed to 6 to 10-year-olds.
Okay, my son listens to meditation every night before bed, and my 9-year-old. So
these are called the SS meditation.
Okay,
and they are spaceship rides to different planets and spaces,
and my 5-year-old in kindergarten, after recess and lunch, they come in and they either do on YouTube a yoga or like a body scan meditation for these kids at the Montessori. It's so
cool.
great. It's 20 minutes scheduled in to their day. They get to do that.
That's so cool.
I love it.
Oh yeah, I went to the Windsor School in Denver, and they do a lot of that too, which is a really cool school. And same thing, where they wanted me to come in and teach mindfulness to the kids. I'm like, oh, yes, please.
Right. As you're talking, I'm just thinking of the possibilities with therapy, and I talked a little about exploration for teens, but there's also the addiction part where they're trying to escape something, they're trying to cover up something, and not just teens, but everybody, right? But if we can get to, rather than this alcohol is bad, or even the overeating is bad or whatever you're using to numb or escape, instead of demonizing that, the weed or whatever this is, getting that underlying issue and working with that. And some of these, they're like hacks, the breath work, these tools that we could use. I mean, you already are doing so much of this stuff, but this comprehensive whole thing, like schools and therapy and all the things to have this healthier generation, and the prisons, and there's just so much. So I'll do my little piece, and everyone finding their little piece that they can do and working together to change the world.
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty intense or morning routine, and but I think it's not about having your entire routine completely 100%. Like, that's going to take years of practice and work, and again, knocking down another brick, right, to be able to go through. But just starting with one thing. And when I was teaching in the university in Florida, at University of Central Florida, we did a mindfulness course, and I taught, first thing to do, no phone after 9 p.m., no phone before 9 a.m. Like, unless you need to, like, you can buy an alarm clock. You don't necessarily need to use your phone. You really shouldn't be charging your phone next to your head anyway. So, like, just get a different alarm clock. And don't look at the social media apps or any of this stuff that's going to change your vibration before you start your day. Really get your day going first. Whether that be exercise, whether it be breath work, whether it be meditation, whatever that is that you do, ice baths, whatever practices. Maybe it's like, for me, some days I don't have my meditation, but I'll sit with my handpan and play for 20 minutes, and just that's sort of my meditation. Or I'll go for a hike in the desert, and I'm like, this is my morning routine today. Like, that's what it was today. I knew I didn't have time for an ice bath before coming here, so I was like, I'm gonna get my cold exposure and my, like, little bit of a meditation. So I went out in my shorts, barefoot, and walked with my dog, and that was my, like, morning.
Awesome.
But there's a lot that you can do in the mornings that really create this momentum, and so it's really about saying, this is the way I'm going to make these changes, and just finding one thing to do, and then maybe you add to it, changing this. But a lot of these things that we need to do come to us through inspired action, right? So we can't just be like, okay, I'm going to change my life. Here it goes. Because more than likely, you're going to relapse into the old life that you had, because that's default mode, right? That's our default mode. And to really make lasting changes into a new pathway, it takes more than a day. It usually takes 21 days is what they say is having a pattern or a new routine to make it lasting, is 21 days. So the NFL player that I was telling you, or sorry, the NHL player that I was telling you about that came, he was done with me in 4 days, but I told him he was not done. Yeah. We ended up sending him to like an inpatient program here in Southern Utah to finish up 20 days, because I knew that what I taught was good information, but without somebody there reinforcing it daily, it wouldn't happen. So when people come to me for integration, I don't just say, well, there you go, we did a nice trip and there's your little thing. They have like a list of things. Like today, this whole week is 10 minutes of breath work every morning. Then the next week is like, okay, we're going to do the breath work, but we're also going to add a little bit of meditation here. Also, depending on who it is, it might be yoga. It might be like some movement, or even just any kind of movement. Yeah. I've been recently got into this African dance that's on YouTube. I know.
That reminds me of
it's awesome.
Can't Buy Me Love.
Oh yeah.
When he does the African dance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
So
you know it.
I do. It's the African anteater dance, right? Or the African. But I did that at a retreat because we just wanted movement, and it just felt so good to associate with the body for a minute. Yeah. To say, okay, that's sweat and that's my heart beating, and that's difficult for me to do that. See, the thing is we do what we're good at because we don't want to be vulnerable, especially men. Like, I don't want to fail, so I'm not going to try that thing. You know, you mentioned wakeboarding. I was a competitive wakeboarder for years.
Oh, really?
And there's tricks that were said to be impossible. Same thing happened in snowboarding, right? Where before Shaun White and Kevin Pierce, before he got injured, were working on this double cab McCork thing, right? Kevin Pierce crashed in Park City and got a traumatic brain injury, and didn't go to the Olympics that year. His best friend Shaun White did, and took golds, and it's a whole story with Kevin Pierce, because I do some yoga based on traumatic brain injury. But that trick was said to not be possible. Also, at one point in time, the 4-minute mile was not possible, right? At one point, the longest ice bath wasn't possible. At one point, certain mountains were not climbed, right? And so as a collective, we're evolving. As a collective, we're getting stronger. As a collective, we're believing more. And that is changing our DNA. Okay, so as we believe, it's being passed on to your kids. It's being passed on to your kids. What is possible is not a thought anymore. It's in the DNA. And what we're learning from all this is we can change our belief system through our DNA, not just through our thoughts. So at one point, the autonomic nervous system was unable to be messed with, right? And now we can influence it. At one point, the flu is just something you get. And now we're realizing through practices that I can find myself in alkalinity, and with this release of interleukin, which I'm interleukin 6, 8, and 10 that I'm doing through ice bathing, that is creating an anti-inflammatory response within my cells, and people are getting sick less. People are out healing themselves from things like Raynaud's and rheumatoid arthritis. People are finding dramatic changes as it relates to mental health with Parkinson's and dementia by doing some of these things that we thought, let's just give them some more drugs or do this. But yet we're changing it. Joe Dispenza talked about this when he was laying in his bed, back broken in 8 places, and they said, you'll never walk again if you don't get this Harrington rod surgery. And he said, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell my mind and body that it can re-heal itself because I have the DNA that knows what a healthy back looks like. And so that's a lot what we're trying to program in these psychedelic sessions through breath, through ice bathing, is saying you have all you need inside of you. You don't need to look outside of yourself. It's all there. You just need to remember. And the medicine helps you remember who you can be and who you really are. And that is whole, that is healed, that is safe, that is happy, and that is a person who is peaceful. We said it earlier that when we don't feel those ways, we're out of alignment with our source. Yeah. So it's about getting back in alignment, and
so perfect.
Maybe a couple times sitting with somebody and then making those changes, I think.
And then integrating them, like you said. I know my son goes to an integration group every week, and it's someone there. Like you said, I had these 4 days. I gave him all the tools he needs, but someone there holding you accountable. They learn, they teach them lessons. They just being there so that you are getting that consistent change of state. You have these peak experiences, these epiphanies, these huge things, and how do you make them part of who you are, or integrate them into your life so you're being and feeling like you want to.
There's some paradoxical things that happen within our lives, right? So where we're like, I need to make some changes. Alan Watts talks a little bit about it. He used the word improvement. He's like, but he said, if we're making improvements, who's doing the improving? The person who needs to be improved. And so we're in a very much of a paradox there, right? Like, who's improving who? What came first, the chicken or the egg? The improver or the improvement that needs to be done? And we need to step away from our role of saying, I am only this, and saying, I am that too. Tatuasim, right? I'm that I am also. I'm all of it. I am my mind, I'm my body, I'm my soul, I'm my healing, I'm a healer. Young Pueblo again, he said, true power is living the realization that we are our own healer, leader, and hero. Hero, leader, healer. He said, those with true power don't hurt themselves or others, but we embrace everything with love. And so that's really where true power is saying, I am that too. I don't need to, doctors and therapists have lots of value. I work in the field, I get it. We need to be reminded of who we truly are. And I guess that's maybe why I take a little bit of a stance when it relates to someone saying, I am a healer. I am your shaman. I don't like us self-identifying specifically with our diagnoses. I don't like us, but also who we think we are. people ask me, I'm like, oh, I'm a creator. I don't know. I help with things and I create things and I do stuff. But like, I would never claim anyone's healing because they're doing it themselves. All I simply am is kind of the helicopter pilot, right? That's showing them, let's go on a ride. Let me show you the top of the mountain. There it is. Okay, there's your path. Cool, let's go land at the bottom. Now you go hike the mountain. And then they get to do it on themselves. Yeah, I may be like, I'm right here behind you. Got you. Don't worry, you're going the right way.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, now you're going the wrong way. And just hollering, saying, hey, just make some adjustments here. But you are taking yourself to the top of the mountain, not me. If that was the case, you'd be sitting in a sled, totally comatose, and just let me drag you, right?
Right.
But yeah, you got to do the hiking. That's why it's uncomfortable.
Yeah. So perfect. So I went into the void, True North float, I believe, put it on, and lots of partners, and Ryan was there, and he just led. We were all laying on the grass at this park, freezing our butts off because it was so windy.
It was windy.
It was good. It was all planned. You planned that, right? The wind, so that we'd have to be uncomfortable a little bit, push through that. And so we're laying there, and it's easier for me to go inside and connect with my eyes closed. And I had them closed for part and open for part of your breath work you did with us. And I'm laying there staring up at the clouds, and as they're moving by, and your body, your state is changing as we do this breath work. And I always think breath work, it's gonna, it sounds like work, breath work. And I'm a little, I'll just do a meditation instead. That sounds easier than breath work. But like, as I listen to yours on Insight Timer or wherever, it's easy. You're guiding me there, and my body just does that. It would be hard for me not to breathe how you're telling me to breathe. You know what I mean? It's just, it flows. It doesn't feel like work, what I'm trying to say. It didn't feel like work. And as I had this state change, and my hands are tingling, and my vibration is lifting, and my body's feeling different, a little tingly, and I opened my eyes and saw the clouds moving by, and it was kind of this surreal experience where, like in a movie, and this time is lapsing, or you're going into this different, I can't explain it. It's like a memory, but it wasn't a memory, or going back in, and I was there with my son, who was playing music later on, and I was experiencing him and his soul. And it, like, this breath work can be really powerful, and you can connect into similar states as with plant medicine. So I'm there, and I'm experiencing his soul, and it's been a really challenging relationship for me, and we've done a lot of work, both of us, and it's been a really rewarding and great relationship too. And I am experiencing who he is and what gifts in a feeling state, not like mentally processing and making a list of what gifts he's brought into my life, but like feeling it so deeply that just like tears were just streaming down my face as I lay there onto the blanket, and the emotion came up, which is so amazing to have that, to feel deeply in life. We just go through sometimes, and nothing kind of, even if you're not numb, you're just living, you're just doing your thing, and to just feel so deeply. And I'm so grateful for that emotion, and just the tears flowing. And it's hard to explain that. It's like a spiritual experience, what was going on and how I was connecting with him. And after that was over, and I got up, and he was sitting with some friends, and I went over and just like hugged him, and was just like bawling and telling him how grateful I was for him, and how connected I felt to him. He didn't do anything. He was, maybe you can argue that spiritually, but he was sitting there, and I just felt so much love and so much connection and so much gratitude and openness. And so thank you for that experience.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to discount the experience at all, because it is real. It is a real feeling that's happening with chemical and frequency. It's happening within you, and you did the work. And I guess that's where the breath work comes in. It's not about, it's hard working and I have to try so hard. It's more of saying I have to make an effort to be a part of this experience of breath, rather than it just happening automatically. Okay, so you did the work and you created that alchemy that went from prefrontal cortex, brainstem conversation to saying, I'm going to go ahead and deviate into these areas of my limbic mind that are my emotional centers. And sometimes we feel certain things because they're in our emotional centers. They're in our hypothalamus and the hippocampus and the amygdala, which is our fear responder. And when we shift our thoughts, we can see it through MRIs, that into those areas where those are lighting up, we're getting away from the logic and the processing. I have to think so hard to this area where it's just all really heart coherence in our love. And that's why you feel the emotional rise. And that's really where the heavy lifting is anyway. So you're shifting away, and we can do tens of thousands of hours of meditation to get there, or you can do one breathwork session that is guided properly. So I think I would say to we just did a 4-7-8 breath. The cadence of bliss is what we call that. It's the top triangles of what in the breathworking world is what they would call it. But there's so many other ways to dig deeper into this, not just one technique. And really to have a guide who you trust and who is there after the breathwork is what's important. There's a lot of charlatans on the internet who will certainly guide you through a technique, but then there's no after piece. You're giving them access to your autonomic nervous system. Keep that in mind. Your breath worker who you're saying, guide me, you're saying, I trust you to go into the deepest part of my subconscious and help me move from my prefrontal cortex into my limbic mind. So basically giving you access to my emotional center.
Yeah.
And I trust you. So make sure that before you do breath work, that it's somewhere and someone who you trust. So again, those who are looking for resources saying, I really like that 4-7-8, Ryan, but I want to go deeper, stronger, more sympathetic dominance, that was parasympathetic dominance. Insight Timer, I have tons of stuff on there. We're releasing an app within the next few weeks, waiting for the Apple Store to give it to us, but it's Breath Source is what that's going to be called, and I'll be on there. You can go to the languageofbreathcollective.com, and there is a 6-week course. I'll give you a discount code that you can offer to your listeners for who want to, and they can go to that, use the affiliate link, use a code, get a discount off of 7 weeks worth of breath work. And like really learning it from people I trust. My buddy Jesse and I and some others from the collective have created this course. We offer the retreats, and Insight Timer is a good resource, but again, it's about who is guiding this. Because there's a lot of people, even like one of my teachers, Wim Hof, you can find his voice on lots of meditations on YouTube. However, most of them are not him. It's people stealing his voice with great music in the background, and it is unauthorized and actually a copywritten thing to do that. So you won't see me unless I'm teaching Wim Hof method fundamentals. Call something Wim Hof method.
Gotcha.
I'm teaching a hypoxic breath work, and it's because we're not here just to rip off a technique and here you go, there you go. Unless I'm teaching the actual method, I don't teach Wim Hof method breath. Gotcha. Okay, I'm teaching something totally different, which is maybe a mixture of hypoxia mixed with maybe a parasympathetic dominant breath with another technique, and we're putting them together in a sequence, which I might call language of breath, which I might call breath as medicine, which I may call superventilative breath. It just depends. And so again, it's about really trusting the person who you're guiding, that they have done the work to learn all these techniques, and they're not just regurgitating some sort of technique.
Yeah, and they're a safe place. Like these emotions come up, these things, the integration after. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned earlier this triangle and this connection and closeness, and that's one of the most life-changing things in my life is having a great relationship, but for men, and I talked to another gal saying how transformational these things, men that are closed off from their emotions or have been trained not to share emotions or feel emotions or all of these things with breath work or with plant medicine, that kind of breaking through that and teaching them what it feels like and how to be able to be in and with and share their emotions. Have you seen anything? Anything with that or experienced that? Being able to open a gate, the breath work in particular, I guess, open a gate for anyone, but in particular, I was thinking men, to open up that emotional connection and then how that could shift and change their relationships.
Well, a lot of work that I do with veterans, I mean, we're in our role of, I was this job and now what? I did that for 10 years, or I did that for 5 years, or I did that for 20 years. Now what? And so I'm kind of closed off because they may have come from a upbringing like I did, where it's like, boys don't cry. And then you go to boot camp, you're not crying here. Do what I say, act now, do it now, react. Be this person, because it serves that purpose.
Don't care about your feelings.
Yeah, your feelings get in the way. Your feelings will get people killed. I remember hearing that.
Oh, wow.
You thinking too much will get people killed. Your emotions will get people killed. You need to react. You need to lean on your training. And that's really what we're being told to do. And what I notice specifically with men is that when they finally decide that they're okay with you as their therapist or their guide, that they're okay to allowing that small window of opportunity of vulnerability to show. It's saying, hey, I can be vulnerable, but don't tell anybody, right? And then once they realize that feels good to be a little bit vulnerable, which it actually feels like courage, when you associate vulnerability with courage, then they say, well, I want to be courageous with my partner. And they realize that vulnerability might just be having a conversation saying, I want to be vulnerable, first of all. And by doing that, well, what does that mean? Well, it means I want to express how I feel, not just what I'm like, maybe not just sexually or emotionally, but really the triangle that you discussed really is yoga. Let's think about it. Not yoga meaning like postures. I mean, union. It is taking two beings that are on each corner and connecting them with consciousness. And we're creating the hardest yoga ever, which is a relationship. This is because it has moving parts. And we have to say, well, here I am in this union, mind, body, and soul, and you're in this union of yoga, mind, body, and soul. How are we continuing this yoga? If we don't have a shared consciousness, then what happens? If the shape falls apart. And here we are, two conscious beings trying to make a triangle, and that's not going to happen without a shared consciousness. That shared consciousness only comes from being vulnerable and saying, I'm going to go ahead and open up this to my partner because I want this to be something that works. Stephen and Andrea Levine talk a lot about that in their books about relationships and consciousness. Ram Dass talks a lot about that. And in some of the talks you can listen online about the yoga of relationships. There's lots of ways, but what I find is when men finally decide that they are more than their training, they're more than what their father told them, that really that's what their partners are actually seeking. Is the problem is we've been hurt. I've heard this. I'm looking for a bad boy, looking for somebody who's rough and rugged and can take care of me. I just want to feel safe. But there is like this beautiful place where you can be emotionally vulnerable and still be a safe place for your partner. And still be confident and conscious in the same person. Whereas at one point we were like, we don't want to do that. I watched somebody, I think it was on TikTok or whatever. Basically, it was a woman who's like, how do I look like this and still I'm single? That was like her video. And the guy came in and goes, let's do the math. And the math was there's actually more men than women on the planet. And then there was also, he kind of went into some of the facts about men being incarcerated more. So then you've lost, that population. There's also the men who, you also take the LGBTQ community. So then you've lost a few men and women there. And he was basically doing the math and essentially saying that for the most part, this is how the feminine mind thinks for the most part. And this is how the masculine mind thinks. And this is why there is a disparity, because not all men meet the criteria of what you're looking for with safety, security, finances, spirituality. And so we have this definition of what we're looking for that's so specific that what we've just done, and the disparity was something like, it was in the millions. Okay, it was in the millions of people that you would never date because you've already disqualified them before. And this is the problem with like dating apps and so forth, is because you've already disqualified somebody based upon something that is just their physical body. But yet, remember, we talked about 5 different bodies, right? And so when we decide that we're not going to just look at the one body, the physical appearance, we've also then opened up to all the other qualities that reside beyond that in the consciousness. And whereas the outer form is lovely, right? Beautiful bodies and beautiful people. But when we look past it, then we start to see more options with our relationships, and probably where we'd be most happy.
Right.
Really.
Yeah, when you let the universe bring you to that person rather than the physical appearance on that dating app as you're swiping.
Yeah. I mean, I've certainly dated for my own ego. I've dated who I thought was just super gorgeous, amazing. Wouldn't she look good with me? I've done that. Yeah. And then you realize that you're not happy still. That there's something missing. And then, it doesn't mean there can't be that really physically attractive person, but also very spiritually attractive person can be the same person.
Right. And when you combine that, as for me, when my husband opens up emotionally and we have that spiritual and we can see each other's souls and all of that combined, I know like 10 years ago, I got super into fitness and I was kind of looking down on him. He didn't work out or anything. He, played volleyball, rode mountain bikes. He still did stuff. He didn't look terrible, but I was like, you should work out. You should go to the gym. And a little bit judgmental of him because I was judgmental of me too, right? I needed to look a certain way. And the point of, there's 2 points actually to that is like now what is like draws me to him like a magnet when he's emotionally available and we've connected on a more spiritual may not even be the word, but connected on a deeper level. And on his end too, he's said, and he doesn't talk that much, but just these few, and he's not like showers me in compliments, none of that. And I was saying something like, well, I'm happier now. Yeah, I don't have abs and I weigh 15, 20 pounds more than I did back then when I was obsessive about food and how it looked, right? But I'm happy and I like enjoying life. And he said, I am more physically attracted to you now than I've ever been in our whole marriage. And I think that physical attraction is not because I look better, because I don't, right? In a supermodel magazine
that's all comparison
way, right? The world wouldn't say I look better, but he's more attracted and drawn to me on that soul level.
Oh yeah. When I was in the military, at one point I was 205 pounds. I was at 4% body fat. I was lifting twice a day. I was drinking the crappy protein shakes. I mean, this is 1995. They didn't taste very good. It was EAS and Joe Weider and a couple of the other brands. Sorry guys, but we have made things taste a lot better now. Right. Where protein shakes are like pretty normal. We have them with smoothies. And they have
more complete protein or complete nutrition in them.
Yeah. So I was doing all that and I was in great shape visually, but I was completely dissatisfied with my life because I was spending my days trying to get to an unattainable and really not healthy place for me, where I was eating in a way to suppress certain nutrients so that I could look a certain way. Exactly. And in doing so, I got big and bulky, but yet I had headaches all the time. I was, really trim, abdominals, and I was, very thin skin, but yet I was having gastrointestinal issues. So like, what is the trade-off here?
Yeah. And the satisfaction with your life. You can say it with business too. You get to a point where you make the money you wanted to make, or you hit those goals you wrote down, you affirmed, and you're not fulfilled. You're not deeply satisfied with life. You're not aligned.
I found better results with aligning with my doshas, which I teach in Ayurveda. So Ayurvedic medicine is really the yoga for the body. Yoga that we know of as asana is really for the mind. And a lot of people think, it's a physical thing. But if you really read Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, he says, Yogas Chitas Vritti Naranha, the first book, the second sutra, like it's right up front. He says, yoga, that's what that means in Sanskrit. Yoga is the calming of the whirlwind of the mind. If you look up how many sutras or scriptures in there say anything about posture, there's one, and it says Sukham Asanam, okay? It basically says Sithra Sukham Asanam, says that it should be steady and comfortable, the pose that you take. That's it. It doesn't say you need to have triangle pose and you need to do hot power yoga twice a week to be happy. It says make sure your poses are comfortable and steady. There's all kinds of scriptures in there about meditation, all about yogi superpowers. There's 197 total, well, not 195 or 197, depending on how you ask in the translation, but 195 that describe what yoga is, and only one of them talks about posture. The rest are about mind work. They're all about calming the mind. They're about meditation and ascending in these 8 limbs. Mm-hmm. The 8 limbs of yoga, only 4 of them are really outward facing. The rest of them are all inward facing. The ones that how we associate with the world are a lot like the 10 Commandments. The yamas and niyamas are all about kind of how we associate with others. Then we get into asana, then we get into pranayama, our breath, and then pratyahara is this withdrawal of the senses. We pull everything back and say, I am not what I see and hear. I'm actually way more than that. And then we start getting into things like dharana and dhyana, how we concentrate and how we meditate. And then there's samadhi, which is our self-realization. So if we were to look at our life like the Yoga Sutras or even the Bhagavad Gita, it's all about do your dharma while you're here. Make sure that you're a good person. Start to associate with the inner world rather than the outer world. The outer world is going to change. Eventually, here's the surprise, you're going to die. Okay, you're going to die and you're going to drop the body. That body's going to drop, but the self is everlasting. The self lives forever. And, there's lots of metaphors we can use about it, but essentially, we've been doing this a long time, okay? If not thousands, if not millions of times, we've been coming to a body. Here I am, moving down karmic path, moving through some stuff, and then we drop the body and we move on to the next one. And that's what the Tibetans teach, that's what the yogis teach. This is a story that has been told over and over and over. And when we can stop associating with the body, we're going to be a lot happier.
So when you bring Ayurvedic, is that how you say it, in, is that just a way of using nutrients to live in harmony with the body too?
It is. It is the yoga of the body, really. So it's really us taking what they call doshas, or our types of bodies, mm-hmm. and eating properly for what we need. I mm-hmm. found that for me, a plant-based diet is best. For some, they may find that it's not. Mm-hmm. But for me, I found a plant-based diet is best, and I tend to function better mentally and physically when I'm on that diet, and that I found that the exercise that I need is really hiking, yoga, the physical yoga. I do acrobatics and I do some climbing and stuff. But that's the exercise that I need. I don't need to lift weights to feel good. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean there's something wrong with that. It just means that's not what I need, because I don't find joy in it.
Right.
So if I don't find joy in it, why should I do it?
Oh, I'm so on that camp.
Those who find joy in lifting weights, great, do it. That's awesome for you, because you may hate doing yoga.
Yeah.
Do what makes you happy. Don't do it because of how you expect to look. Do it how you want to feel.
Beautiful. Okay, Ryan is going to bless us with some beautiful hand pan and maybe a meditation, whatever you're feeling, whatever's coming.
I don't know. Just playing the hand pan a little bit here. Already the music just sounds nice, right? Those who would like to breathe, if they're not driving, a little breath work is always nice, whether it be the beginning of the day or whether it be the ending of the day. And just beginning to breathe in a way that makes sense to you, not one that you feel has a specific technique. Just breathing in. And maybe as you let go, really what would it feel like to have the sensation of letting go? Just as you breathe in, expanding and lifting towards the head. And as you exhale, letting go. Each breath an opportunity to draw in awareness. Each exhale a chance to let go. Beginning to notice if the breath is high into the collar or if it's low into the belly. Either way is fine right now. Noticing if it is deep or shallow. Recognizing that and just allowing it to be there. I'm going to start to give a little bit of mechanics around the breath and just kind of optimizing it. As you take your next breath, breathing into the space right below your belly button, letting the belly inflate, which is really just letting the diaphragm lift. And then releasing from top to bottom, adding a little bit more mechanics here. As you breathe in, the belly expands, the ribs expand, the heart lifts. And then releasing top to bottom. Belly last. I'm going to start to create a little bit of a cadence around this breath, but let's just do a few more of these. Breathing into the belly, the ribs, then the heart, holding at the top just for a second, and then releasing from top to bottom like you're letting go. This next cadence we're going to do is called the cadence of bliss, which is a 4 count in, 7 count hold, and then an 8 count release. This cadence of bliss is really great if you wake up in the middle of the night and have some insomnia. It's also really nice if you're feeling a little bit anxious or stressed. Just a kind of a home base to come back to. And it can be expanded as needed. Let's just all do this together, starting with the giant breath in all the way to the top. Belly expands, the ribs expand, the heart lifts, holding at the top, and then all the way down. Starting our first cadence as you get to the bottom, breathing in now for a count. 4, 3, 2, 1. Now hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now release. 8 counts. All the way down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathing in now. 4, 3, 2, 1. Now hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then release. 8 counts down like you're letting go. Here we get 2 and 1. Breathing in, expand the belly, the ribs, the heart. Now hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and slowly releasing. 8 counts all the way down. Cadence of bliss. As we get to the bottom, what are we bringing in today? Breathe it in, expand and open, lifting, and then holding, noticing what's becoming active. Where can I release here? How can I let go? And then letting go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Last one like this. Breathing in now. Count of 4, 3, 2, 1. Now hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now releasing. 8 counts all the way down. As we get to the bottom here, let's take a full breath in all the way to the top. Holding at the top. Maybe draw awareness to your head. Noticing what's becoming active. Take another sip. And releasing like you're letting go all the way down. As you get to the bottom, take a full breath in all the way to the top. Holding at the top. Take another sip. And then releasing all the way down. And just spending a moment here, noticing what you feel. You can move back into your own breath. Could be an emotional response, a physical response. Key is just to notice that there maybe was a change. Just a few breaths in the cadence of bliss. This is something I teach in my course in the language of breath. Just kind of a nice home base. This is a very relaxing or parasympathetic dominating breath. one that I do before I eat to help with digestion, before sleep, or in times where I'm feeling anxious. Now, in this other side, we're maybe feeling a little bit more calm, maybe a little bit more ease, and place where we can begin to manifest and what we want into our day. And there's lots of ways I can do this, but I'd want to just start with gratitude and 3 things that immediately come up that you're grateful for. Maybe it's the bed you're laying in, the clothing you're wearing, the house that you're in. Just finding 3 things that you can immediately say, I'm grateful for that. Maybe it's the music you hear. Those 3 things are things that you can write down in a journal or on a page somewhere. 3 things I'm grateful for with a date today. And you can think about this or write them down. What are 3 things that would make today really great? So this is a great day journal rather than just a gratitude journal. So I have my 3 things I'm grateful for. And what would make today really great? Maybe it's a surprise or unexpected abundance, or a conversation going well, or maybe you have a place you're going to go visit and you were hoping for great weather, and that would make today really great. And as you identify those 3 things that would make today great, I want you to see if you can sit in the vibrational awareness of what it would feel like for those to really come to pass. Not in your thoughts and telling a story, but behind your heart, where you say, this is what it feels like to have great weather, and this is what it feels like to have a surprise. This is what emotionally it feels like to have a great day. You could take these 6 items, what you're grateful for, and what it would take to have a good or great day today. And at the end of the day, or maybe before you get into bed tonight, write 3 things that did happen that were great. See, we're not dependent on just these things. Other things may come into the experience, and the universe is leading you to what you're manifesting. But it may not be all at once, especially if you're trying to bring in $1 million just today. That may not be feasible. But maybe finding that parking spot at your grocery store, the one right up front, makes the day really great. Or having the sun kiss you on your face, or this unexpected meeting with a friend that you didn't know was going to happen, are all part of the journey to that abundance. And eventually, it'll come. But today it's saying I'm happy for what did happen, because it is part of this forward and backwards, pauses and detours that I need to take to get to where I need to be. Ready? Come back into your human experience. Wiggling fingers, toes, maybe opening your eyes slowly. And welcome this new day, this really good day, with a smile. No matter what you encounter today, let it be your dominant intent to hold yourself in this place of feeling good. Thanks.
Thank you. That was beautiful. I just sat in that feeling, and I put myself on a red rock with my kids, out hiking with the sun, And as you said, those things, the $1 million and the parking spot, and all I really desired at that moment was just that feeling of connecting with my kids and being in nature. And that was like pure bliss, just being there, just imagining that and experiencing it. Like you said, that emotion, that's how we create these negative experiences, is something happens with really strong emotion, abuse or something that's attached to that strong emotion. And as we do some of these things and we create really strong emotions in the opposite way that can stay with us and last. Thanks so much for subscribing and leaving a review. Come join our amazing free community, Life Changing Trips. There's a link in the description. Please read our full disclaimer or listen to it. But for now, just note that all content is for informational, entertainment, educational, and harm reduction purposes only. Life-Changing Trips and Harmony Williams and their affiliates and guests are not doctors or mental health professionals or legal advisors. Any information shared is not meant to treat, diagnose, or claim cures for any physical conditions or mental illness. Psychedelics and sacred plant medicines are not for everyone, even when done legally. There are serious contraindications with various health conditions and pharmaceutical medications. Please do your own research and take action to be informed. Remember that you are 100% responsible for your actions and subsequent consequences. The views of the guests are not the views and opinions of Life Changing Trips.